Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to yet another edition of the Lambom Show. Today is Monday, July 12th, 2021, and we are continuing our series on African immigrants, men, relationships. And today we want to talk about something that I think ties in or brings together all that we have been doing so far. I believe that one of the greatest needs we have, one of the greatest areas we can effect change is by changing our mindset. We are what we think, and I believe that that thought process is important. And I had to borrow from Coach BK because he's big on mindset. That is why his brand is Mindset Boulevard. And I wanted to pick his brain and just, have a conversation around what we need to do in order to change this mindset. Why is mindset that important? Why do we have to focus on that? How can we effect the changes that we need in order to, attain desired results? And so, again, as always, it is important for us to set the conversation within a framework. And it's always about my mindset, because the danger with these things is we want to look at the other person and we forget that we are the ones. If each of us could change our mindsets, improve on our mindsets, get to a place, I think we'll be fine. Let me not jump ahead. Let me bring the coach on and then we can take it from there. BK, good evening.
Good evening, Lambert.
So yesterday I put up, I wrote a little article on why I'm rooting for the English soccer team to win and not the Italians. And I know it's not a good space for you because as being in the UK, I'm sure it's not a good sight. But it's important that it's soccer, it's an entertainment. But beyond just entertainment, there's much to it, and we can talk about it. But how are you feeling today after the game yesterday? I presume you're a soccer fan like myself.
That's an interesting one, Lambert. It's interesting because it cuts right through the fabric of what it is we're talking about, which is mindset. I always say to myself, in order to be a good winner, you need to understand what it means to go up the rungs of that ladder. You need to understand that losing is what you make of it. So how am I feeling today? I'm feeling no different from what I did yesterday before the game. Yeah, there was obviously a bit of tension, anxiety during the game. But then once that verdict has been passed, then you metabolize it and you run with it pretty much. So I'm feeling great. Thank you.
Oh my God. Okay. That's interesting. Again, I guess back to our topic for today, it has to do with the mindset. And I really wanted to invite people to go onto Mindset Boulevard, it's a Facebook page. I'm going to put up the address. I want to read out the first part of, I think the last entry you had, which was if I'm not a couple of days ago or June, I don't exactly know the date, but I can go back to it, and it says, minding the mind. Your mind is a runway on and from which thoughts take their rise. So choose your thoughts wisely, for they are the building blocks of the actions that become your reality. Let me read that one more time. Your mind is a runway on and from which thoughts take their rise. So choose your thoughts wisely, but they are building blocks of the actions that become your reality. Now, I realized that I went back to the 1st of June and scrolled all the way to see the snippets that you put in every time you get inspired. And I realized that it was building up to this moment. And I'm wondering, we can come back to it, why you decide to label your brand as a mindset. What is it about the mindset that makes it the thing that everyone needs to focus on?
So thank you for that question, Lambert. It's pretty much like you say. Look at the mind like this gold mine. The mind is that place where our thoughts come to. We rally all our thoughts. It is that place where we live. The mind is where we dream. The mind is pretty much who we are before we become who we are. So ask me the question, why is the mind important? Brings us back to thoughts. And I would like to coin it this way. So it's all about communication. And we know that while thoughts are the vocabulary of the mind, feelings are the vocabulary of the body. And these two need to go or work in unison. Now, what happens around us is completely irrelevant. The things that happen around us are not particularly important. It is the meaning that we give to the things that happen around us that give them meaning and gives them importance. And it is from the importance that we give, which is a direct function of what it is we are focusing on. It is from these that we generate feelings, or should I say, emotions. These emotions are pretty much who we are. We are energy in motion. And until we have got a particular direction we are going, which usually is in response to our environment, we don't move. We're not moved to do anything from that state of being. We only get to move to do something when we convert these emotions, which are energy, which is who we are. So energy in motion into feelings. Now, these feelings will either be good or bad, subject to the interpretation that we give whatever experience we were going through. Are we reacting? Are we responding? We would typically react when what it is we're looking at puts us in a position where we're vulnerable. If that vulnerability becomes an insecurity, we start defending ourselves. We take on the offensive. We're either defensive or we're offensive. And these are different sides of the same coin. And so that's why we need to be particularly important. But then, that's why we need to be particularly careful how we metabolize our environment, what meaning we give to the things that happen to us, what meaning we give to the energy that runs through us, how we direct that energy, and where we take it to. So that is extremely important.
So there are a couple of things I want to touch on, because you talked there about the mind-body thing, and then the response to the environment and how you put all these together. We don't go around in life monitoring our thoughts and thinking, what should I think at this time? How should I think at this time? And our feelings are more spontaneous, based on kind of habitual, isn't it? We have become habituated to respond over time, so much so that it is quick. When this happens, this is the way I go. But then I think the point you are making is, because we're energy in motion, we need to now slow down to be able to ask ourselves what is really going on in our environment. How are we responding to these things? How are these things influencing us? And how can we become better persons in the way we respond to the things around us? Am I right, or did I not get?
You get that is absolutely what it is. You see, because when we come into any situation, one of two things will happen. It's either we leave that situation better than it was, or we leave it worse than it was. And the question we ask ourselves is, what is the contribution we're going to make to that particular situation? It is always either a problem, a challenge, or an opportunity. And again, it all comes down to how we are metabolizing the situation and what meaning we're giving to it, subject to the focus, well, which is a direct function of the focus we put on it. And just to look at, like you say, it is something that happens spontaneously. So we don't go checking to see what thought is coming into our minds or into our minds and what thought is not coming into our minds. That's because there are three layers within us. So there is the conscious mind, there is the or subconscious mind, and there is the unconscious mind. So your unconscious mind is that part of you that pretty much stores every little thing that happens to you, whether you process it or you do not process it. I call it the sponsoring thought. Sometimes we come into a situation and we take certain actions, and these actions are automated actions. They are things that over the years we have practiced because we've identified a particular situation with a particular threat and or a particular opportunity. So when we see anything that reminds us of that experience, we're automatically triggered because that's a neurological wiring. They always say neurons that fire together will wire together. And over time, this freezes, these neurons will wire as memory. And memory is that thing that allows us to go back to a situation, to port it from the past to the present, and then make of it a future, not the future. Again, based on how we decide to cook the situation, because it is all it is a recipe. You will be responding and or reacting to the same stimuli that I will be responding and or reacting to. The question is, how do we combine and permute what it is that we are living as an experience? How do we use these as building blocks and or as stepping stones for where we're going? Are these helping us get to where we want to go? Or are they distracting us and keeping us from getting to where we actually want to go? And it's not a question of where we want to go, it's a question of who we want to be. Because if we can be a certain way consistently, then we don't have to worry about the journey because it means we will be us. So when you are consistently you, irrespective of the situation, when you've got a set of rules, morals, and ethos, values that you abide by, then the situation you're going through doesn't matter because your character, your presence, your behavior, who you are, that which drives you, which doesn't really depend on what is happening around you, will be constant. And when you get into a situation and you know that your only contribution is bringing healing, your only contribution is empowering all parties involved, including especially the connection, then you have absolutely nothing to worry about because consistency is the one thing that will always assure there is success. It will guarantee the outcome that we're looking for. As long as we're consistent, we will get there. We may not get there as soon as we want to get there, but it will actually take us there when we need to get there. See, because this brings me to another thing, the confusion between our needs and our wants. Sometimes we confuse our needs for our wants and we confuse our wants for our needs, and that is a recipe for disaster when we get the order wrong. I don't want to talk too much. I'll let you chime
So
in if you wanted to
yes,
say.
again, you started off. I mean, in between, you said there are three layers. You described to us the unconscious that fed into the memory, then conscious and subconscious.
So there is a conscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
That is what we work with on a daily basis. What I can remember, what I see right now, how I put things together. That is my conscious mind, my present. So the present, so to speak, and my ability to be present in that space. That is the conscious mind. Everything that is happening in the here and the now that I can control, I can influence, and obviously the ones that I have no control and no influence over, the ones that are outside of my control, they operate within the space of our conscious minds. Now, you would agree with me that sometimes you find yourself in a situation where you know that you know something. It could be a friend who's walking past and you're trying to recall their names. You see, because you're under duress, you're under that pressure and that anxiety. The name doesn't come to you. And you're thinking, but then I know this name. I know this. I should know this. And the moment that person disappears outside of your reach, I mean, you can't reach out to them anymore. Once you relax, the name comes. So the question is, what happened? You had that name stored somewhere. It's not in your conscious mind. It simply means the communication between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind has been breached, between body and soul, so to speak. And that's what fear does. So once fear sets in, anxiety is born, and panic attacks become their offspring if we do not quickly take control of ourselves, not the situation. So notice again, we're not taking control of the situation, we're taking control of ourselves. Because if we direct ourselves right, the situation takes care of itself. We've talked about the conscious mind and we've talked about the subconscious mind, and we made the distinction between one as well. We make the distinction between them as, or the analogies. So the conscious would be your body, and your subconscious would be your soul. And what is your soul in this case? So your soul would be your sentiments, your feelings, your abilities, your capabilities, your gifts, and your talents. The thing that shapes you into a particular tool that comes out here and shapes the world. So if that tool is confused, then its contribution to the world will be confusion. If that tool knows precisely what it is, then it comes into the world and there will be absolutely no dilemma as to what its purpose is. And those are the tools that actually get to live or lead fulfilled lives. And our challenge in life really is to find out what tool we are. Then, of course, this brings us and connects us back to or with the unconscious mind. This is what I call supreme intelligence. That is spirit. Your spirit, my spirit, would be one spirit by and large.
I want to welcome Andrew France Kemka, my friend who's in the UK. She says, greetings, Mr. BK. Hi, Mr. Mbom. Karen Taylor says, good evening, guys. Very good. And you talked about consistency, which she says is the key. And where I have a problem with that is because somebody could just be consistent in doing the wrong thing, isn't it? And there's some consistency in that. And that is all. How do you survive? And I like us to now translate the concepts we have been dealing with. Let's bring it down to a relationship, isn't it? You have a friend, your wife, because we are talking about on this show, we talk mostly about men. We want to examine this, and we are asking, how do these things now play out? Consistency, you get married, the woman now wants to change you to some other person. You can never change. And all they are doing is, I have tried all I can to change this man, and you are just stubborn. And the man is consistency in that stubbornness. How do you deal with that?
That's an interesting kind of worms which you open, and they all have teeth. So I'd like to pick them apart so we can deconstruct them really rather carefully. When a woman talks, trouble is, see, the vocabulary is completely different. Karen once guided and directed us to men are from Mars and women are from Venus. That's an amazing book. It's a beautiful book. If you've not read it, read it. If you're more an auditory guy, get the audio. But you would realize that women talk differently from men. The vocabulary is completely different. So we started by talking about communication. So let's break down communication and what it is. We always start by saying nothing means anything until we give it meaning, right?
Correct.
And we know that following Marlow's hierarchy of needs, there are only 6 needs. There are no other needs apart from the 6 that there are. And when a woman is talking or when a man is talking, it doesn't matter what it is they are saying. It doesn't matter what the situation is. They're looking to meet one or more of these 6 needs. So when we talk about consistency, obviously we need a moral compass. We need bearings. Now, I'm going to consistently exercise a particular behavior, but then to what end? I want to believe that whatever it is you're doing has got an end to it. You're being driven by purpose. And this purpose will take you in one direction. It wants to leave the situation better than it met it. It wants to take that conversation to a place where it inspires, motivates, and fires all its participants, everyone involved. It wants to bring healing to that place. And so, this is the bearing that I'm talking about. As long as you've got, it's a bit like momentum. So you could have momentum until you give it direction. You're not really going anywhere. That is what will deliver the results, not just momentum. That momentum needs to have direction. And so too in our relationships when we engage, you made a statement. She just wants to change me. Are you sure she really wants to change you? Or is it your insecurities and your intransigence that is making you think that her actions are in a bid to change you? Her actions are in a bid to have your attention. And because you resist, she eventually starts looking for negative ways. She strives to meet that need to get your attention in negative ways. You will see her complain about things she never used to complain about. No, she is not interested in those things. She's letting you know that the one thing that is there that should be important, should be the most important thing to you, you are neglecting and not realizing. But because she said that to you in unambiguous, unequivocal terms in the past, and you have shunned her, made her feel unworthy, she changes her method because she doesn't want to be hurt anymore. So now she's getting your attention by pricking you, by poking you. And all you hear is, oh, you are not good enough. So now we have two people who do not feel good enough. That is a recipe for disaster until one or both of them remember that they are on a journey and they're meant to be going in the same direction.
So again, I really want to come back to the issue about consistency because, and I agree with you that, and I've come to learn that the hard way personally, not to focus on what the woman is saying because actually there's something behind it, isn't it? If you take those words and you don't pass them, you will be mad 10 times a day, isn't it? But if you really look for what is behind, and I just like what you said currently, that there are those Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There are just 6, isn't it? We can go through those in another session. And you look at it and you really want to be consistent. The problem keep coming back to consistency is when you talk to guys, they tell you, hey, the woman complained about X today. I've been working about on X. Then all of a sudden she has moved to Y. Okay, I'm now working on Y. Then after that, she's going to Z, and you're like, man, can't I even have a break? Don't you see that I've been working on X? All of a sudden, when I get comfortable with X, so how do you manage that the consistency from your partner in terms of what you need to work on is not consistent? It's always moving the goalpost from one place to the other. How do you deal with that?
How do you deal with that? You listen. I'll call on us all to start listening. You see, because if you're doing the same thing over and over and you're not getting results, I'll kick him out.
sorry for
that. Karen, whatever you fight back. What you resist will persist. I love Karen's sense of humor. Okay, so
you're saying we should learn to listen.
Yes, we should learn to listen. You see, because if you start doing this and you're working on A, and you think, okay, when you're done with A, you should have fixed the problem. And no sooner are you not even done with A, not only are you not done with it, but your efforts have not even been acknowledged. There's a problem. There's problem B. Then there's problem C. What does that tell you? It is confirmation that what you're dealing with has nothing to do with the problem. You're dealing with the smoke. The fire is someplace else. Start a conversation. Start a conversation. And the best way to talk to women, which is something men do not understand, we men do not understand because we can't cope with very well, silence. Obviously, if you're going to be silent, or if you're going to listen, you have to be silent. We are so much in a hurry to fix things that we always assume we know what the woman wants to say and has to say, even before she opens her mouth. And then we go into Mr. Fix It mode. We're looking for something to resolve. We're looking for something tangible to make better. And it's sad because usually when we do that, it is for our own self gratification. Because if it had not been for our own self gratification and self grandeur, we would be listening patiently to really fully, deeply understand what it is she was saying. And if she were to throw an accusation, it doesn't matter. Let her throw a barrage. If for all the men listening, try this at home. It is safe. When she throws a barrage of accusations, pause, look at her, smile, and ask, is everything okay, sweetheart? And watch the topic of conversation change. Notice how all your iniquities, as you thought they were, all those things you thought she was looking, all those problems she thought she had with you, watch them disappear. See, because you've got a woman in front of you who all of a sudden is complaining about things she never used to complain about. And these are things you do virtually, literally every other day. She will complain on some seasons, on other seasons, she will not complain. So what does that inconsistency tell you? It is nothing to do with what you're actually doing. There is something else somewhere else that you're not addressing. So stop and listen.
No, but I mean, it seems as if it becomes too hard then, because if what she's complaining about has nothing to do with it, and you have to figure it out. There's a double challenge there, isn't it? This is my take, and I want to use a banal example. Your wife needs money for something. Okay, let's just use that example. She tells you she wants to buy something for the kids, and you send her some money.
Yes.
And instead of coming back to you to say, hey, honey, this one that you sent, I thought was too small. This is actually what I anticipated. But now she goes off on a tangent to list the number of times that you have not done some other things that are related to money. It hurts, isn't it? Because then you're asking yourself, you asked me for something and I just gave because I thought that was going to be enough. I might not have measured the situation adequately, isn't it? I might not have weighed the situation adequately. Why don't you just come back to tell me that, hey, listen, I actually expected to have 3 times that amount, but I thought you were going to be reasonable enough to come back to do that. So that would have solved the problem. But then you go in, she comes back and she's pounding and spurting out all these things, and it becomes a little bit too nasty. And so the question I'm asking is, yes, I agree, understand, just get to understand, parse the words, but there are times that you are actually going to miss the actual thing. Is this your partner? You're on a journey together. What's so difficult about your partner just putting it out to you in black and white?
When we talk about black and white, it's not as straightforward as that, because the way someone reacts or responds to you is a direct function of the history between the two of you, how you have dealt with that communication in the past, or at least how she remembers the experience that she takes from past communications where you may have taken on the offensive. And this is her way, or this is pretty much how she retaliates. So again, all it is telling us is that something has gone wrong in communication. And it is for one person to be the bigger person to actually take a step back and to understand what is going on. You answered the question brilliantly. If you notice that she is struggling and you answer the question the way you just did, if this was the situation, why didn't you bring this forward or bring this up so we could move forward? Now, these are the questions which, as I'm sure you would agree, we do not always ask. We would rather jump to the phase where we ask them who they think they are to talk to us in that tone of voice. So when we meet confrontation with confrontation, we escalate the situation. And it is difficult again to have this conversation because there are a myriad of different scenarios. We come back to mindset. And what is this whole mindset about? Again, you've been challenged. And if we agree that we're called upon to become or to be our best selves, which happens through enlightenment, it means whatever is happening around us, any stimulus around us is designed to show us who we are and how far we have come on our journey. So it's not the person we're engaging with. It is not the situation we're dealing with. It's not the circumstances we find ourselves within or in. It is almost like a KPI, a key performance index, a report card telling us where we are on that ladder. See, because let's look at life like a ladder with many rungs. Each time we go up a rung, I call it pretty much by and large spiritual maturity. So whenever we are mature or we overcome something that we were struggling with in the past, it's like going up one rung of that spiritual ladder. And you would realize that each time you make progress, each time you make an advancement, the world around you adjusts. The world around you starts responding to you differently. It does not react to you anymore. So that is the mindset we want to have. I find myself in this place. Life is throwing this curveball at me. It is coming in the form of my wife. And the subject of conversation is money for X, Y, or Z. That is irrelevant. The question is, what is it evoking within me and how am I dealing with it? When it evokes something within me that makes me feel vulnerable, do I let that vulnerability become an insecurity? Or do I see it as an opportunity to actually build, grow, come up higher, and have my wife respect me even better?
You see me nodding. I really never nod, but there you go. Welcome, Divine Chamkong. Divine Chamkong, as always, is a fan of this show, and he runs his own show, a very brilliant one, Chat Night Africa. Check that out. I'm going to put the website, but it says your guest is a relationship surgeon, and we can see you doing the doing the surgery again. And before that, Karen said something. The men are too slow at fixing the problems. Again, this is one thing that I really want to challenge, isn't it? Because these stereotypes, it's a problem when you have these stereotypes, and that is why you want to talk about the mindset thing.
Yes.
And I love the way you put it in terms of it is not so much the person that is challenging you, it is how you react to it or respond to it. It says something. It says something about
You.
where you are, because you put it brilliantly. We are called to be our best selves, and we become our best selves through enlightenment. Okay, and this enlightenment comes when these situations, these things challenge us. Again, Emmanuel says, Lambert, your guest has extraordinary mastery of relationships. It will be a lot easier to package and bundle his thoughts in a college degree to obtain the desired results, because not everyone has access to such fine knowledge. But again, there is no one size fits all. Thank you, Emma, again. And a few weeks ago, I quoted one of those things that you put on your Facebook page. BK, any response?
Yes. So if you could just bring it up for a second, and don't forget, we need to go back to Karen as well.
Yes.
And
yes.
To touch briefly on Karen's remark. For starters, Emma Joa, thank you. I am humbled. And so you talk about a package and a bundle that is in the pipeline. Doing a course, writing a book and doing a course which someone can use as a handbook to actually accompany them on their day to day. You raise a very, very important point, and Mindset Boulevard answers the question that you articulated, which is, or it addresses the statement the last statement in your comment. But again, there's no one size fits all. That is precisely what Mindset Boulevard addresses. You see, Emma, when you look at life as a journey, and you see this journey as its own destination, which means you never really arrive, because the moment you stop striving, the moment you stop moving, the moment you're not inspired enough to want to aspire, is the moment you start dying. It means that in this journey, you are growing. The journey is actually internal, but its manifestation is external. So it is not what you manifest that defines you. It is who you become in the process of this manifestation that defines who you are. So you could have everything in the world, as we can see, that is the pandemic we're suffering today. You have people out there who have everything that money can buy. They have got resources in people, things, and you name it, affluence and luxury, yet they are miserable on the inside, because the more they have, the greater the void on the inside. And the question is, why? The answer is simple. We tend to chase things because the world sells us tangibles. And at some point, we confuse ourselves with these tangibles, just as we confuse our identity with our physicality. Once we see ourselves as our physicality, we have to carry this weight. We have to protect this weight. That weight becomes the master. We start serving the flesh. And so there's a role reversal of sorts. We confuse, that is the point or the nexus at which we confuse our wants for our needs. And that becomes that recipe for disaster. You find yourself in that place where if I asked you what you wanted and you weren't sure of whether or not you would be able to afford a meal today. Now, before I asked you, what would you like? Now, let me play that one more time. Let's say you're in dire straits. You don't have money. You have absolutely nothing, and you're looking for an opportunity. I show up, and I said, if you had a windfall, what would you do with it? You tell me stuff like, you say something like, you would educate yourself, you'd educate your family, you would get a home for your mother, you would look out for your family. Notice all these are based on needs. You will seek to protect people. You will seek to make them secure, safe, and comfortable. You will seek to value and validate and to empower people. But the moment I remove money and I put in front of you, I say, okay, sure, what do you want? You may be tempted to go shopping. So you notice this is what I mean when I say, when our wants are confused for our needs, we start making the wrong decision, because that shopping is now feeding the flesh. Whereas when I was talking to you before, who was talking? The soul. The higher self was doing the talking and it was in command. The flesh could not get in the way because there was nothing for the flesh to gain from that conversation. But the moment I flash money in front of you, the flesh finds its voice because it is looking to self gratify. So, how do we get to a place where one size will actually fit all? It's the way we define who we are. So, if you ask me, who is BK today? If you ask me, who is Mindset Boulevard? I'd say don't go looking for a person, go looking for a set of values. And you would notice that if those values are consistent across the board, then there is no way you can go wrong, because all you're doing is you're taking your situation, you're reading every situation through the filter of those values that define who you are. In my case, just to put things into perspective, the way I would relate with Lambert, the way I would relate with you, Emma, the way I would relate with any member on the panel today, or on the other side of this of the stage, the way I would relate with my kids, or the way I would relate with my spouse, my wife, does not change. There are three principles. One, unconditional love, which means you get to be who you are. Show up the way you feel comfortable. Be that person. Own it and be proud of it. Don't make excuses for who you are. If there's something that you're going to do in the dark, do it when there is light. Own yourself. Be you proudly at that. I will not judge you. I will not berate you. So that is what unconditional love is. Second would be discuss sacred things, which means, if we are friends, regardless of whether we're friends or not, I'll take you to that place where we talk about anything and everything. It could be your period, it could be masturbation, it doesn't matter. There is no subject or topic under the sun that we can't discuss. And I'll tell you why. Because when I'm having a conversation with a prospect or with my clients, the interesting thing is we jump into that first conversation and we're talking as if we've known each other for years, as if we grew up with each other, just because that foundation of trust has been laid and the records have been set straight. Now, what happens when we can talk about every topic under the sun? Notice that when we create taboo subjects, places we don't want to go, no-go areas, there is something about those areas that we are not proud of. So we feel guilty. And when that guilt grows big enough, it becomes shame. And I'm sure you'd agree with me that all our demons, all our skeletons are kept in the shadows of that room, in the darkest corner of that particular room. So if there is something that you're dealing with, that you're struggling with, that's where you will keep it. Now, if we can't talk about it, it means nobody can get to those gremlins. Nobody can get to those demons, at least not in a conversation. You will be the one protecting these demons. And if you can't protect them, it means they will constantly have a hold on you. There are certain topics you're not going to talk about. You start seeing yourself in a certain light. It limits your ability to open up. It limits your ability to deal with the issues that you are suffering deep down inside. And the harder it is for you to open up in that capacity, the harder it is for you to find who you really are. And if you don't know who you really are, then how can you live a life that is fulfilling? Because you will spend your entire time, or a lot of time, trying to give the impression that you are something that you are not. You spend your entire time protecting these shortcomings and these weaknesses. So, but then when you have these filters, and we've talked about two of them, one, unconditional love. The second one, or the second principle, would be you're talking about everything under the sun. Now, the third principle is pushing for mutual growth. So yes, I did say, I will not judge you. I will love you, and you will know that I love you. I'll make fun of you. We will talk about these things and we will laugh about them. It doesn't mean I will. No, so when I say I'll push you, it doesn't mean I will try to change you. None of that. It simply means if you tell me you are a certain person and you're exhibiting certain behaviors, then I will challenge you. I'll ask a question. Okay, I understand this is who you say you are. This is what you say you believe in. These are your values. These are your mores. These are your ethos. But I notice this behavior here is inconsistent with who you say you are. Or when you behave this way, this is the potential outcome based on the energy and the vibe that you're putting out, based on the wavelength and the frequency that you currently carry and are vibrating at. This is where you're going. Is that where you really want to go? And it could be a dispute. It could be some conflict, a misunderstanding between you and your spouse. So I would ask you that question: do you love your spouse? Yes, I do. Yes, of course, I do love my spouse. And you say you want to react this way. Now, when you react this way, is it because you're retaliating, or is it because you're trying to empower your spouse and you're trying to hold them accountable so they can show up in a way that is much better than the way they're showing up right now? And if you manage to do that, then they will respect you even more, because you would have given them a reputation to live up to. If you're reminding them who the man you married is, this would be for the woman, for instance. Hey, sweetheart, I don't recognize this behavior in you. This is who you always are, and this is what I've always admired about you. Because even when I was wrong and you stepped into the situation, I came out of there a stronger person. Now, when you show up, I just cringe. I just want to bury myself in the sand and never come out. So I know that this is detrimental to me. And if it is detrimental to me, it will be to our relationship, because it means I will not be able to show up. And if the woman can talk to you this way, and you too should be able to talk to the woman in that same light when there is a misunderstanding. Sweetheart, this is the way what you've just done made me feel. If this was your intention, I'm not sure, then let's talk about it. Why would you want to make me feel this way? If this is not the way you wanted to make me feel, then what is it you really wanted to achieve? And is this the best way to achieve it? I know that we've covered and touched on so many different points. Let us see if we can right back in.
Yeah, if you're just joining us, welcome to the Lambom Show. Today we are with Coach BK, and we're talking about the mindset shift. The title of our discussion today: Mindset Shift, the Missing Rib. Divine had a question and he disagreed with you. You touched on it again. To what extent is the statement that not one size fits all is accurate? And I think, again, if we all agree that we're called to be our best selves, and that comes through enlightenment, it means that we are all at different levels, isn't it?
Yes.
These principles are the same for everybody, but where we are, it's not the same. So
it's not the same.
Yes, again, the mindset thing we're talking about here, one of the things that I'm going to touch on later on is that cultural mindset shift. Because the things that have operated in Africa, they don't operate within this environment. And if we don't have that shift, there's going to be call it a constant conflict, a disconnect. And we will find ourselves constantly fighting both with ourselves and with our spouses. That is, I mean, I'm not supposed to be saying that because I'm not a coach. But again, I would invite people to go onto mindsetboulevard.com, mindsetboulevard.com. That's BK's page. That's his office, if you may put it that way. And you can connect with him through that. There are other ways you can get on. And I know that we were supposed to come back to Karen, but Divine again said, yes, well, I disagree. Every human being needs valued, complimented, respected, and etc. I don't know the context of why he's disagreeing, but again, yes, we all need to be, but all of us are not at the same level, isn't it? It was one size fits all, means these principles are applicable to us every time, everywhere. But where we are with respect to these things is different. And I just gave you that. Let's go back to Karen's comment. And Emmanuel says, so relationships are had by individuals, and these individuals respond to different impulses, different personalities, and conform to different cultures and religions. All these create discrepancies. While I agree with most of what he says, it gets a bit hard in the real. Okay?
Okay. Yes, Lambert. Let's see if we can put that into perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So, Divine and Emma, look at things. Let's look at things from this perspective. What are the things that drive every last one of us? We're motivated by two things: pleasure and pain. Now, it depends on how we define pleasure and how we define pain. There is short term pain, long term gain, and there is short term pain. Well, there is short term pain, long term gain, and there's long term pain, short term gain. Now, this is what pretty much by and large will define how we show up when we look at this pleasure pain principle. I'd like to really dwell on this. So, we're looking at the pleasure pain principle, and that is the one thing that guides our movements. Now, we all agree that in any situation, we are called to bring out the very best in and to bring out the very best of ourselves. Has everyone got the ability to read a situation in a way, to read and process a situation in a way that actually grows them? So you would realize that it doesn't matter how many people you put in a room. You could have, like you articulated, you could have several people exposed to the same experience, but each person is going to take something else from that experience. If you have a formula that educates, empowers every last one of these people, if you so you've got a principle that tells them, okay, look at the situation you currently are in. What is it evoking within you? How is it making you feel? Based on how it makes you feel, how can you make it better? What are the things you need to focus on in order to change what it is you see as a problem into an opportunity? What do you focus on to see those opportunities that will help you transform a stumbling block into a stepping stone? What are the thought processes that will allow you do that? Divine is the one who went back to human needs, the hierarchy of needs, and this is a good time for us to go through them. Um, I'm taking the time to do this because it is really important. Let's not forget, we're looking at the question, one size fits all. Is there such a thing? Is it possible? And my position is, yes, it is. When we're not focusing on what we're dealing with on the ground, but we're focusing on the principles, the values that we engender, that we recruit to deal with any situation. So we've rightly highlighted and articulated the fact that in any situation, we want to be safe, secure, and comfortable as an ultimate outcome. Nobody goes into a situation and wants to feel discomfort. Now, safe, secure, and comfortable can be instant gratification for others, which means they don't want to put in any work. And for others, it is delayed gratification, which means I will work today, I will live tomorrow. Why do I want to work today and live tomorrow? This is where these principles start kicking in. I want to work today because in the course of working, what I call work today, at some point will become fulfilling in and of itself. And once what I'm doing becomes fulfilling, when I find that work that makes me, that is in and of itself a reward. And what do I mean by that? This is a piece of work, an engagement that when I undertake, I feel fulfilled. I release endorphins. I release serotonin, oxytocin, and dopamine. These are the feel good substances within ourselves. Now I'm releasing these and I'm feeling great doing work, making a difference. Notice I'm never going to have to ever work a single day in my life again. And at the end of that engagement, or at the end of that process, I get a paycheck as well, which brings that extra bout of euphoria. That is happiness. So I hope you see how the formula is unfolding. It starts with a challenge, something that makes me feel uncomfortable. So I'm uncertain. I want to move from a place of uncertainty to a place of certainty. I'm going to have to metabolize this experience in front of me. I'm going to have to deal with the challenges. I'm going to have to come up higher. I'm going to have to figure out ways of creating an opportunity, of making something good, of serving the world through this particular problem or challenge that I'm going through today. Because when I go through this challenge today, there are people coming behind me who will be depending on me in order to know how to walk this particular path. So somebody is going to have to walk that path successfully to then become the role model. And can everyone have the formula that helps them become that role model? Oh, yes, absolutely. So the formula will not be a tangible. The formula will be what it is you have to do, what it is you have to learn in order to move from where you are to where you want to go. Are you going to be adapting? Are you going to be reacting to what it is you're dealing with? Or are you going to be responding to it? Are you going to be meeting your need in a positive way? Or are you going to be meeting that need in a negative way? If you meet a need in a negative way, what you're doing is retrogressive progress. You're going down the rungs of that ladder. So notice I'm not telling you about your individual actions, but I'm just telling you how you will feel based on what it is you're doing. If you come into a place and you're all about power and authority and you scream your lungs out, what does that tell you? I'm going to be telling you all you're doing is telling the world that you've lost control. You've lost self-control, so you're trying to control your environment. Notice it doesn't matter why you lost control. You will know. You see, because if you're in a position of a position a position of authority, then the assumption is that you have got what it takes to enlighten, to empower, to encourage, and to motivate, to get people to want to learn. And usually when we start, we have the patience and the steadfastness and the fortitude, the wherewithal to do it and to do it patiently, to impart that knowledge. But when we do it over and over and that message is not getting across, and we feel like we're out of our depth, we can't find a way to communicate the message, we start losing our patience, we start making our pupils the problem, or the students the problem. And that is us now losing control. Things are not getting done the way we want them done. Rather than empower people in a way that they will be able to do it, we take out the whip. We forget that the whip is counterproductive because when we're not there, everybody will go back to slumber. And we will always need that whip. And when we use that whip, we are distancing people away from ourselves. So again, notice we're talking about principles and using these principles to show people how they meet their needs and then telling them how they will feel if they take the right actions. Because whenever you take the right action, it doesn't matter what need you're meeting. It could be your need for certainty. You want to be safe, secure, comfortable. It could be your need for significance. You want to be valued, appreciated, and respected. It could be your need for variety. You want a bit of excitement, a change of state. It could be your need for love and connection. You want someone you can call your own. When you meet these needs in positive ways, you feel at peace, you feel at ease. When you meet them in negative ways, conscience bothers you, and you will then need something to dole it down. You start blaming people for the way you are feeling, and that is a sign that you're going astray. So notice you will go in your own life and you will be able to walk through the dark corridors of your existence, your past, your present, and your future, and you will see those things that have held you back in the past. So I'm just telling you about what it is you're thinking, what it is you are feeling, and what it is you're doing, because it is a cycle, the think, feel, act cycle.
You'll be able to work your way back to feeling right if you were not feeling right. So if you notice you're not feeling right, check what it is you are thinking. What thoughts are you planting in your mind, and what exactly are they doing in the, what seeds are they generating? What fruit are they giving? So you find yourself acting a certain way, you don't like the way you're acting, check your feelings. What feelings made you act that way? Did you become offensive? You were looking to control. Did you cry, withdraw, feel despondent? It's because you were looking to just connect. You were looking for friendship. You wanted harmony, and you did not get that. So you would feel sad. So your feelings speak to you. These are all vocabularies. As we said at the beginning, the thought or words are the vocabulary of our thoughts, and feelings are the vocabulary of our body, our emotions. So again, sticking to these principles, each person can navigate their way. And as they go through an experience, they get to see, they get to feel and understand what it is that they are going through. And from those feelings, when they stop and are mature enough to not be in a hurry to point a finger outward, they then realize they've got work to do in themselves. The alternative, of course, is blame the other person, make them the problem, and you escalate the situation.
So, Julius Ngola, welcome and thank you again. He gets back to the issue. The mindset differs from person to person. It's just the way we think, which can affect your life positively or negatively. Therefore, in my opinion, it determines your success or failure in life. Interesting topic.
And that is 100% correct.
And he says, I enjoy the way you break it down. It fascinates the understanding of the topic. Great. So, yes, let's zero in again once more on this mindset thing, because I believe, again, what would be the difference? We talked about this in an earlier session about expectations. The problem with relationships generally is the expectations people come in with. And these expectations are not made known to the other person. So much so that when the other person is not meeting the expectations, maybe again you're going to talk about the confusion between needs and wants, then there's a breakdown. And we start wondering, something that started off so gracefully is now ending in bitterness, the disconnect. And we're saying the mindset is important. The mindset you enter any relationship with is important. What is the mindset you have at this point? What are the thoughts that are controlling your feelings, your actions, whatever? What are they? Because how you react to the environment is a function of the thoughts that you are harboring. So how do we begin drilling?
Navigating. Yeah, how do we begin navigating these waters?
Correct.
Is that the question?
Correct.
Okay. So here's where it all starts. Before I engage, if I come into a situation, what do I say to myself? The first thing I say to myself is, I will leave this situation better than I met it. As in, I will ensure that at the end of my engagement, my contribution empowers. I don't leave it worse than I met it. I make sure I leave it better than I met it. So that will be the very first thing that crosses my mind. And then secondly, I want to ensure that I come out of the conversation empowered. So is what I'm doing empowering me? Am I being true to myself? Am I pretending to know more than I know in a particular scenario and situation? Because that is where we start building what I call the social construct. And this social construct, the world calls it the ego, I call it the social construct. We put this thing out there to shield our vulnerable interior, the vulnerable BK on the inside, which is really the flesh. Because I don't want people to see that side of me, because I'm embarrassed about it, or for whatever reason, the ego protects it. And that is how the ego is born. So, how do I then process all of this? You used a word, expectations. You will notice that words are nothing but containers, and they don't mean anything but the meaning that we give them. If I say I love you to three different people, they will get three different messages, but I've used the exact same word because they appreciate the word based on my relationship with them. So if I tell my child that I love them, they hear something else. Lambert, if I tell you that I love you, you will hear something else, not what my kid heard. If I told my spouse that I love her, she would hear something else, not necessarily what you heard. So each person is hearing that word based on their own filters, using certain filters from the past, and I may not necessarily know what those filters are. And that is why I say communication is so important, because I don't know what your past is. I don't understand the wounds and the pains that you carry. And I don't know which of those wounds and pains I am serving as a trigger to and or of. When you use the word expectations, for instance, how do I deconstruct the word expectations? So I'm very big on communication because it has the answer to all the problems that we deal with on a daily basis. We always assume that we've understood what the other person has said when we really have not. When someone talks about expectations, I've got these expectations of you. What is that person saying to you? There are certain areas in my life I'm not bothered with. I can't be bothered with because, hey, guess what? I know at the beginning you and I had a pledge. And in this enterprise, this conjugal enterprise that we're in, what we pledged to each other was we would be vulnerable to each other, because it is in that place of vulnerability that we get to understand our strengths and our weaknesses. And it is only when we have understood what our mutual strengths and weaknesses are that we can complement each other and grow, build energies or exchange energies and build synergies. This is the only place where it can happen. So I will be fully responsible for everything I do, and I will hold you accountable for your end of the bargain. And I'm not going to do it in a way that belittles you or befuddles you. I will do it in a way that empowers you so that I may be empowered, because you and I are going in the same direction. And me fighting you is like my liver fighting my lung. The system will crash, it will collapse. Do we come into a conversation with this mindset at all times, understanding that once we start fighting, all we're doing is setting the heart against the lungs, the liver against the kidney, and so on and so forth. If that system doesn't understand, if it doesn't come to know coherence, then guess what? You are fighting yourself. We were talking about, what was it again? Expectations. Yes. And I said, people use expectations, but behind the word expectations, you will find a whole minefield. So I expect you to show up this way. Why would I expect anybody to show up in any particular way when I am not showing up in every way that that person expects me to show up in, or what it, so I don't meet their expectations, but I expect them to meet my expectations. What am I saying? I'm not ready to help you grow to the point where we can actually operate synergistically. That is one side of it. And sometimes I need you to be that person who can accommodate my weaknesses because I can't be bothered to change. So I expect you to do things a certain way. Or I could just be looking to meet my needs in negative ways, my need to be respected. And so, how do I gain or get this respect? By bossing you around or by putting you down. And that is the way I feel gratified. Talk about the narcissist. The narcissist needs his supply or her supply. They need to know that you depend on them, and without them, you are nobody. So, with that frame and state of mind, you can see how actions will flow. The person may know it, they may not know it. It's usually you just have that drive. So expectation is the one word that is responsible for so many marriages going wrong. Do people understand that? No. And The delicate thing with the word expectations is that anyone can build a very solid case around it, a very solid case around common sense. And all that common sense is just really designed to control the other person, not really to empower them. Again, it's a long thread because these dots start connecting. When I find myself in a place where I am trying to control you, it is because I feel threatened by you in one way or other, or something that you are doing that may be threatening my manhood, threatening my ability to provide, whichever way I define provide, threatening the way my friends will see us if they knew, for instance, that you were earning more than me. So you will notice that there are certain words which once you bring into a conversation or two parties are discussing in a relationship and they start throwing that word about, you know communication has had long gone wrong and this recipe for disaster was long overdue.
Marilyn, our favorite friend, and greetings to my favorite relationship host, Lambert. Thank you. And Coach BK. This Hansel, I owe you a call. We're supposed to have a show, I think, 2 weeks ago. This is the kind of person I love. Now, BK, I want to twist the conversation a little bit because the danger with this is to relate mindset, thought to some educational value. So I need to have a certain degree in order to have a particular mindset. I need to go to school in order to have a particular mindset. I mean, this mindset we are talking about is, what has education got to do with it, if any?
Okay. I really want to break this down. So I hope everybody has got time. Let's look at education. I think the word education has been used, abused, battered, bruised, and left to the street corner to die. It has lost its meaning. It is soon losing its value. So when we think education, we think school, we think formal education, we think a degree, think a piece of paper. We think accolades. We think the number of titles I have got before my name. For many people, and I say this with a very heavy heart, but for many people, education is what kills them because they try to become what they have learned. They don't realize that you go to school to enhance who you are. When education turns you into something that regurgitates what you have been told as truth, and you don't bother to think for yourself or to connect dots to ensure that before you adopt something, or even after you've adopted something, you constantly check that thing for validity to ensure that it is consistent and it is delivering what it says in the tin. If that is not happening, then education is having an inverse effect on us. Does education mean go to school, have a degree, have any of that? No. Those are the things that will make people feel comfortable, that you took the time, you cared enough to be sure that you understood what you were doing. It just tells the world that, okay, listen to me. It opens the door, allows people to listen to you to see if you've got something to actually give, if you've got something to share. It becomes a problem when that same education, as we call it in quotes, becomes a deterrent to people who are natural talents, natural born talents in certain areas, because what they engage in is not something that they do, it is who they are. So it comes to them naturally. And in fact, people go to school to become who they are. People go to school to acquire the skills, capabilities, abilities, and talents that they have. And they would sit and feel inferior, rot in their little corner because they don't have a piece of paper to flash in a conversation such as this. The same world which is trying to educate takes from it what it is trying to give to it, because of the stigma that goes with making a statement when you don't have a doctor at the back of your name, or you don't have a degree that supports what you're saying. Does that change the validity of what it is you're saying, if it makes sense and people are actually using it and it's impacting their lives? That is the question I would ask you. So no, we're not called upon to have degrees. We're not called upon to collect accolades. They're all good, nice, fine, and dandy. We need a system of accountability, and that is what these accolades are. That is the only purpose they serve. Oh, I have an idea in this area, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about it and working in that particular area. Does it necessarily make me an expert? There are people who have not had the education that I have had, the formal education, who know more on the subject than I do, who in a particular situation will be much valued contributors than I could be. Does that mean you open the floodgates and you let things happen clandestinely? Absolutely not. All I'm saying is, for those who feel that they carry something on the inside of them, and you will know. See, because people will tell you. People will tell you, have you thought about this? You're a natural at this. I feel you when you say this. You have a presence in this area. You have a command in this field. Have you thought about this profession? Have you thought about that? These are the things we want to be listening to. And no, that education is not formal education. It is a combination of everything. It is who you are. It is how you think on a daily basis, not who you are in a class, not the exam you write to pass. It is a function of life. And how do you get there? I think you asked that question as well. How do you get to that place where you become what you do? So you are not what you do, you just how do I want to put this? The thing that you engage in is not something that you do. The thing that you engage in is who you are. Like you and Divine Chamuka. This whole journalism thing, it comes naturally to you. There are people who would go and have masters and PhDs in the field. They may not necessarily be able to articulate themselves and to present themselves and to carry themselves the way you do, because it's not something that you think about. It is something that you tune into, and then the formal education pretty much gives it structure. It refines it. It doesn't define it, because you are it. And I think this is a very important point to make. Education is not going to define you. You are that which is to be defined, which is to be refined and streamlined. And that is why some people go into certain professions for all the wrong reasons and come out and become liabilities to society, because they went in there for the name, for the title, for, oh, well, it is lucrative. But they did not give two bits about that particular thing. Someone who can't stand blood in surgery, or someone who doesn't care about people becomes a medical doctor. That's a recipe for disaster. Someone who hates numbers becomes an accountant. You will be stressed every day of your life. Every day you go into work is one more day you will have a million and one reasons not to go to work the next day. That's the onset of frustration, suffering, and ultimately depression. But take that person out of that environment and you start reversing that. So you realize that education is a term that is a double-edged sword. I would like to replace keep education, but talk about introspection. Introspection is what happens when you have an area that you're interested in, and you chart a course around that area, and you open up your feelers, your sensory self. Every cell in your body is tuned in on that subject. For me, it is relationships. For me, it is people. And to come back, I like the way this then connects again to the statement where we said something. One hat fits all. I think is the statement we
One size fits all.
one size fits all. Oh, I just lost my train of thought there. I hope it comes because it was a really salient point I was trying to make. It just came to me and now it has gone back. And so this is the become steroids. So this is and this is the beauty with live TV. Because people, I love you all. And notice what just happened to me back there. I had a blank, which I'm sharing with you and we're all laughing about, because we live in a world where having a blank like that in the middle of a live conversation, people would freeze. And then anxiety sets in, and then there's that cloud, and it feels like it's the end of the world. No, if you make it the end of the world, it will be the end of the world. But if you make nothing of it, then it becomes nothing of it. As
So
you can.
let me see what I can get you back on. We were talking there about the difference between education and we're on introspection. And introspection is you're charting a course and you're getting to that and you're trying to link it up to Divine's point about Divine and Emmanuel. No one size fits all.
No one size fits all. Yeah, I know the point. If it comes in, then I will I'll reconnect with it. But yes, let's go back to introspection. So I'm rather big on introspection, and introspection is you going out into the world. Oh yes, it has come. It's come back to me. I said I'm big on relationships, and you realize that when we talk about relationships, it covers everything because we relate with people, places. We relate when we are in a set of circumstances. At the workplace, we relate with processes, procedures, and notice that at the end of all these relationships, there's a desired outcome. So when it is a social relationship, we've got mores, values, ethos, and principles that guide us. If it's a corporate relationship at work, for instance, then we don't necessarily bring these in. We bring who we are in. That is assumed. And on top of that, we add processes and procedures to help us deliver that outcome. So notice how this connects very, very, very nicely with that statement. Lambert, what was that statement again? The generic statement,
One
size fits all. Yes.
Yeah.
So as long as we all understand, and this is the education, as long as we all understand that at all times we're relating with people, places, and situations, processes and procedures to deliver specific, intended, defined, or predetermined outcomes. And in this relationship, we do not fail. We just adjust for desired outcome. It's like driving a car. If you set out from point A and you're going to point B, you don't just come out of the road, set the steering wheel, and you get there. No, you're going to have to make adjustments constantly until you get to your destination. So you fail a million times and you redirect and you balance until you get to your destination. Life is exactly the same way. But in life, when we make an adjustment, we think we failed. And we think we are starting from scratch. No, we're not starting from scratch. So this is again where the mindset changes. You're taking what you've learned up to this point and you're adding to it what you need to do in order to go to the next place. And you may have to navigate and circumnavigate in order to bypass or to go over obstacles. Use them as stepping stones, so to speak. So we come back to this place where it's all about relationships. And if we're relating well with the self, because that's where it all starts, if there's no internal conflict within BK, there's no way you and I can have a problem. It doesn't matter what angle you come from. Because if you come to me and you exhibit counterproductive behavior, then I know you're not coming from a place of love. I know you're coming from the opposite, from its polar opposite, which is not hate, because hate is just a derivative of the polar opposite of love, which is fear. You see, hate comes from anger. And where does anger come from? I'm mad at you because you hurt me. So I'm mad at you, and I'll be mad at you. Why? When you hurt me, I feel disrespected. So what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of losing face. I'm afraid of losing my value. And that is what makes me mad. So notice fear is the active ingredient in sadness. So sadness is all about connection. If I can't connect with you, every time I talk to you, it's an argument, but I love you and I don't want to fight with you, but I just can't get through to you. I'm not going to get angry. No, I'll be sad. And I just want to go cry on my pillow. That is sadness. And what is it? A derivative of fear. Again, my fear of losing you. When that hits, I connect with myself. I can't connect with you. I'll just go connect with myself, and then I will cry, and then I will feel sorry for myself, feel despondent, feel self-pity, feel lonely, and then a bit alone, and all of that until I can bounce back and come back to the conversation table and hopefully pick things from there and take them to higher heights. At all times, trying to engage the higher self. That is the most important thing. So notice we come back to this place where life is all about relationships. And if you are in sync, if you are at ease and in peace with yourself, if there's harmony within you, then that's all you can give. And if someone is coming at you, throwing tantrums and doing whatever it is they're doing, you understand they're coming from a place of fear. And if they are feeling downcast, downtrodden because nobody seems to value them, just give them a bit of honor. Just value them for something that they are doing. Appreciate the fact that they are there, that they've taken the time to even talk to you, to open up to you, because not many people do that. And watch that problem dissipate. Because you understand that if it is anger, it is significance. They feel disrespected. You may not be the one who disrespected them, but does it really matter? If you can be the one who makes them feel respected, then you are changing the world. That world they will be going back to, and you're feeling better yourself that you made a difference in someone else's day, and it set a ripple effect, which then went on to affect others. And you will know that. Nobody will have to tell you. People will have to come give you a certificate. Again, to say, oh, thank you, this is what you did, this is the impact it had. No, you just know. You know in your heart of hearts that when you do that, it will have a ripple effect. Just as when you tell someone off here, you don't know how it is affecting the rules and regulations that are happening, the laws that are getting passed tomorrow. You piss someone off here, they go piss someone else off because of you, and that ripples. And then it meets someone who's an important or key decision maker who has been pissed by someone in this chain, and then they make a decision out of anger that then affects you and I. And then we say, oh, these leaders. No, well, we all collectively did the mess. Back to introspection before you kick in. Let me just wrap that up.
Okay.
So introspection. What is introspection? Introspection is you following yourself around and seeing the places where you cause trouble for yourself. Those places, things you know you need to do, but you procrastinate. See, because anxiety, though that thing that happens usually about 4 a.m. in the morning. Say yes if it has happened to you.
Yes,
And
of course.
exactly. And you wake up with that panic attack. Why would that happen? See, because each time we do not do something we know we should do or ought to do and choose to procrastinate, put it off until later, each time we do that, it is in the subconscious. And it sends us a ping every now. We get a reminder, but we consciously obliterate it. We blot it out. At some point, it's a bit like you get into your car, you wear your seatbelt, and it's going peep, 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 peep. But if you drive for a minute or two, it goes off. Same thing that happens. Your subconscious will remind you. It keeps tugging. It tugs. It tugs. After a while, it stops reminding you, but it is still there. So you can connect with the energy, but you can't connect with the object or the substance of its make. So something is eating you up on the inside. You can feel it, you can connect with it, but you don't know exactly what it is. So there's that discomfort within you. Trapped energy, which needs to go to a particular place because there's some particular thing you needed to do and you're not doing, you keep procrastinating. You get reminded of it, but you can't put a finger to what it is. It shows up as anxiety. And anxiety is just a state of mind. When you act on that, and then someone can see a panic attack. But when you're just anxious, someone looking at you will not necessarily know because it's a state of mind. You need to translate that into an action, and then someone will see erratic behavior, which is what the panic attacks are usually typically all about. So it is as simple as that to understand how when we are in disharmony, lack of ease, dis-ease, which is what disease is. And it's a state of stress. So internal conflict. When you see someone fighting you, they're not fighting you. It is that internal conflict within them that is finding expression through you. You see, because if you look at a person as one whole, and there's the yin, there's the yang, so there are two opposites. If within me, say there's the good, there's the bad, depending on how we choose to define good and bad. But let's say there's the good and there's the bad. There's something I know I should do, which will serve me. There's some other thing, some other direction my body would rather go because it wants to have fun. So there's this internal conflict. You show up. Obviously, you, Lambert, will represent one of these sides. And because I am at war with myself, whichever side you represent, I can now attack you instead of attacking what you represent in me. And that's how conflict usually starts. See, because when you come to me and you start engaging and or interacting with me, you don't put anything in me. All that you can do is bring out what is within me. Somebody will say, oh no, but he insulted me. No, of course, yes. No. He insulted himself, because if he can talk that way, then he is reducing his standard. If you join him, you've met him right there. You did it to you. They did not. If a madman were to insult you, you would laugh and go your way. Now, the fact that this one is wearing a suit and insulting you, the suit, and this is where appearances, again, deceive us all. So mindset, we see the suit, we assume sanity. No, measure sanity from the behavior, not from the wrapping. And we say it all day long. Do not judge a book by its cover. Yet that's what we do all day long. Someone with a title or a reference speaks. Everyone listens, even if they don't have a clue what they're saying. The person with no reference and no title speaks, and you can connect the dots. Oh my goodness, it sounds like the word itself made flesh. You can feel the vibe of what they say. It lifts you up. It gives you these tingling feelings. You're left with goosebumps. But no, they don't carry a title. And so nobody listens to what that person is saying, and no one acts on it until the title validates. Someone with a title validates. That's the world we live in. And if we don't get these relationships right, we will go fighting ourselves, not realizing, thinking we are fighting the world.
So well put, BK. When someone is fighting you, it is not you they are actually fighting. It is the conflict within them. That's great. Marilyn opens up some other part of this conversation that we have not had. I agree. Home education, that's upbringing, is the most important education in relationships. Did your spouse have great role models or good examples of successful relationships when they were growing up? Some people who grew up with no good examples of good relationships are able to self-correct. Unfortunately, not all can.
Okay. Yeah, I've got it, Lambert.
Okay. You want to comment?
Yes. And Marilyn, here's the beauty of what you just said, because not all can. Really, what we want to say is not all will. You see, because when we are in a situation, dire straits, and this is generic, I know, because I know that for some people, they just don't know any different. But there is something about humanity, unless, of course, you have got a genetic condition. We talked about needs, and we said we can meet our needs in positive ways, and we can meet our needs in negative ways. Sometimes we have an alibi, which is an excuse to be the person we want to be that thing that we feel comfortable with. because it meets our needs at that particular point in time. So I want to become that vagabond. My parents are fighting. That is the perfect excuse. I've got an alibi. I did it because my parents were fighting. How about I could actually have helped my parents? Because that's a decision, or that is a thought process and pattern that is available to us at that particular point in time. So we choose what we do based on how it meets our needs. If we are in a growth mindset, we will learn. If we are not in a growth mindset and we put ourselves in a victim mindset because we would rather settle for handouts, we will look for shortcuts because we've got a whole barrage of excuses. And of course, in our woke society, guess what? There is a whole current and a whole undercurrent, a whole wave just waiting to carry you along when you play the victim. And I'm not saying that victims should not be supported, quite the opposite. But as with life, every situation is a double-edged sword. What is good? What is bad? We're going through an era of COVID where everyone would have thought was the worst thing on the planet. But what has COVID done? COVID has gotten people to realize the things that are important, to realize that connections matter above everything else. COVID has exposed a lot of the problems that we are facing in society at so many different levels across the 7 pillars of society. So if COVID is doing all of this and making people come together in solidarity to look for solutions to a problem which is by and large staged in an uncharted territory, if it is making us all more aware, if it is making us all more health conscious, how can that be a bad thing? So you notice that this whole concept of good and bad can be crazy. And then take away COVID, and slowly people will go back to taking care of number one, to being greedy, take care of the self, survive at the expense of others. That fast-paced society which we were living in, and everyone was hurrying to get there. Everyone was hurrying to get there first, but nobody knew why and what purpose it was serving. So we were living a life for the trophy, not a life for the value that it actually provided or offered. So
Christoph Messner, welcome. I'm sure this is your first time on this show, but that's kind of funny what you see.
my mind is incapable
to lead a good relationship without arrow and water. So again, we talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, isn't it? That basic at that fundamental level. I mean, he put the way he puts it, but he I mean, you can take it away, BK.
Absolutely. And we will really use this to depict how Maslow, those hierarchy of needs kick in. So when you say my mind is incapable to lead a good relationship without Eru and Watafufu, let's break it down. Let's deconstruct and see what each role plays. You've talked about a relationship. What's the need in a relationship? Love and connection. What have you told us as well? That Eru and Watafufu will give you a certain satisfaction, and you are so sure that when you have Eru and Watafufu, you will have that satisfaction. What is that assurance? It is certainty, which is rule number one. Eru and Fufu and Watafufu will make you feel safe, secure, and comfortable. You will relax. Because that person has given you your Eru and your Watafufu, to you again, you associate what with that? Respect. So not only are you meeting your number one, your first need, which is now you can relax and really feel your environment and know that you are in command. Now, they have done it for you, means they respect you. You feel significant. That is the third human need. Now, because you relaxed, there was a change of state. That is your second human need, variety, which again is uncertainty. The same thing that people will do when they jump off planes and all. They want that excitement, that adrenaline rush, change of state. So you've already met 3 of your 6 needs. And then, of course, from this place, you can show love and you can receive love. So You meet your need for love through the filter of significance and certainty. That is how we would coin it in relationship parlance. Now, if you don't have your water fufu, you don't feel respected. As long as you don't feel respected, you feel you're not good enough, they don't value you. And if they don't value you, how will they love you? Of course, they can't love you. And if they don't love you, how will you love them back? Of course, you can't love them. So you're inaccessible, you are unavailable. Isn't it amazing how just one little sentence and we've almost written an entire chapter of a book?
Yeah, but BK, I have a quarrel with that, isn't it? In the sense that, again, when you come down to this role thing where it becomes the role of the woman to provide the water fufu and arrow, then so that you can feel the the significance and you can get the respect, it becomes a problem, isn't it? It becomes a challenge in a certain sense. When
Exactly.
that word expectation again from the other person.
Thank you, Lambert. Don't forget what we said at the beginning. We said life is a journey about what? Enlightenment. Life will throw curveballs at you to show you where you are at, right?
Mm-hmm.
Christoph here did not know that what I just described is what he's doing, did he?
No.
If Christoph is now if he now realizes that so all those times I was not being available, so this is what was going through my mind, do you think he will make an effort to act differently even when his water fufu and Eru is not there?
Of course.
And do you notice now that where usually he would have been what's the word I'm looking for, he would have despised his spouse, been insolent, not even talk about the water fufu and Eru because he expects it, but he will look for trouble somewhere and expect you to know that the issue is his water fufu and Eru. He has not his water fufu and Eru, and you should know. So now Christoph knows that, hey, if she used to provide that water fufu and Eru, and today she's not provided water fufu and Eru, maybe she needs you. Get off your backside and find out what is going on. You would never have gotten used to water fufu and Eru if it's not something she was doing consistently. So give her some credit that if she did it consistently, it's because she valued and values you. And if she can't do it today, maybe it's because she needs you. So value her in return.
And this is particularly relevant because Christoph is a German guy who is taking particular interest in Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia issues, and he's actually married to, based on this, I'll presume the wife is from Mafi. So you can see how that value that he attaches to it.
Yes.
You said something which I want us to address. A mindset that divorce is expensive, painful, and time-consuming, not just hiring lawyers and going through that arduous task, but coordinating two households financially and logistically for a long haul, added to the damaging effects on our kids, is all that we need to expend all our efforts to water the garden of love with brutal tenacity. So, the mindset about divorce, we need to now be looking at how costly it is, the time. I'm having a hard time because some people do not even need to go through all that process. Okay, they just need to pack their things and go away.
So divorce is an interesting one, and usually when I'm dealing with my loved ones or when I'm talking to my clients, the question what I usually typically say is the person who presses the button, the person who initiates divorce usually is the one who loses, even if they get everything that they wanted. We're transgressing the soul. I'm not going to go too deep into that for right now, but there's something about two people coming together in this conjugal enterprise. The pledge that they make to each other is obviously to be vulnerable to each other and to grow. Do we agree?
Yep.
Okay. So, what is divorce? How do we get to a point, to that place of divorce? The dynamic is usually simple and rather fairly straightforward. You have two people who meet and greet at a level where everything is okay. Honeymoon. They've been introduced to their good and positive sides. They get along very well. There's potential for them to grow and go places. Then, after a while, obviously, they start meeting the other sides. They start meeting their iniquities, the shortcomings in each other. They start seeing the other side of the person that they did not see before, the fabric of who that person is made, their wiring. You start getting hit by the iniquities that they have brought from the past, the baggage that they have brought from their other relationships. That is the challenge you have, you see, because this is what you signed up for. We will help each other grow. For the man, it can be and is usually typically significance. For the woman, it is usually typically love and connection. Now, these two people will do the exact same thing to meet a completely different need, but the message that each one of them will get will be the opposite. Don't worry, Natalie Lambert, I'll explain it. So you've got two people doing the exact same thing to meet specific needs, but then the message that gets transmitted and what is received from the other end actually has the opposite effect. So we've already acknowledged the fact that women are nurturing, so they're usually all about building relationships. And if the masters at building relationships, they're natural born leaders or managers because they would manage the home. They would multitask, like we all know. And they do it as like just like they breathe. So they're all about love and connection. And so when a woman is correcting you, your spouse is trying to correct you, making an effort to point you in the right direction, it is for one reason. She has seen potential and she wants to maximize that potential. So she makes a statement in a certain direction. But for the man, significance is the most important thing. He wants to know that he's respected, that he is respected. And if he's respected, then of course, again, mindset. What are the assumptions we make? Oh, I have to be infallible. I need to have and know all the answers. I need to be in control. And that is how I measure my respect, because people who have power and authority are not contradicted. When I say you do, you ask questions later, we might talk about it if I'm in the mood. Now, that is respect. So if that's my attitude and someone is telling me, oh, by the way, there's a flaw with you here, can you just fix, because if you fix that, you're going to be an amazing person, and she's doing it because she loves you. What do you hear? I, as a man, I hear I'm not good enough. If I'm not good enough, it means, of course, you don't love me. You don't respect me. And if you don't respect me, how can you love me? That's what's going on in my head. So I hide that side of me away. And what do? I bring out the whip. How do I retaliate? I start finding faults with everything that you're doing. You're the woman. First, I've pushed you away. And you're thinking you just wanted to connect. All you were doing was trying to connect with me. But I've pushed you away because I'm feeling vulnerable. And that vulnerability shifted into insecurity. And that's how I moved. That's how I behaved that way. I reacted, I did not respond. But as I push you away, obviously you are thinking you're not good enough. And that is why I pushed you away. So we're both vulnerable and we're both insecure. We've lost that first need of certainty. We're not safe, we're not secure, we're not comfortable anymore. That's the recipe for disaster. The foundation has been taken off our feet. Nothing can be built on that until we deal with it. The man doubles down because now the woman is in a place where, okay, she may pull back because she's trying to, don't forget, she still wants to love and connect. Now she's feeling guilty because we know how to make our spouses feel guilty. Now she's feeling guilty over what has just happened. But you are doubling down, trying more, to control even more because you don't want this to ever repeat itself ever again. So you find faults with things that she is doing and doing right. She starts changing those things, thinking, oh, well, you must love her and you're just trying to correct her so she can be her best. Because when she does it to you, that is what she's looking for. She wants you to be your best. So when you do it to her, she assumes that you want her to be her best as well. She doesn't realize all you're interested in is control. So she tries all these different things and they don't work. At some point, nothing is working. She would have changed and moved away so far, she loses herself. Now she has lost herself. Guess what? You don't recognize her anymore. You've got a legitimate reason to complain because she has changed. You just changed her. She's a confused woman and she is bitter. Then all of a sudden she just explodes and you have this massive fight out of nowhere. And you're telling your friends you're shocked. Everything was going fine. No, nothing was going fine. You were subjugating, using, and abusing this woman for a year, 2 years, because they can't take it. You did it for 2 years, and all of a sudden it exploded. And you're like, no, I don't know what happened. I'm sure it's those her friends. It's those her friends. It must be those her friends. She made a new friend the other day, and the moment she had that friend, this started, and you're convinced that that's what happened. We're always good at pointing the finger out, and we are very good at identifying the problem out there, not the one that resides right here, which is the only one we should be focusing on. So we're left with a woman who doesn't know who she is anymore, and she starts looking for a lawyer. No, that's not the time to look for a lawyer. Come back to who you were. Get back to that woman that this man fell in love with. And I can show you how to do that because it's easy. Get back to that woman. He will either fall in love with you again, all over, or your light will be so bright that he will not be able to, as darkness, to stand your presence. Then he will kick you out. When he kicks you out, of course, he's going to have to take care of business. You don't have to worry about a lawyer. And we don't want that to happen. So when we empower women, it is for them to come to a place where they realize that they should be accountable, responsible to themselves and accountable to their husbands. When we empower men, it is for the same thing, to get them to a place and headspace where they realize that there are times they're going to have to not just support their spouses, but carry them. And it's a mutual thing. So it doesn't matter to those who ask the question, is it possible to counsel one of us, or must both of us be there? When you become the change that you seek, the world around you changes to reflect who you have become. So does that answer the question? Of course it does. We underestimate the power that we carry. And if we can herald that power and be that self, everything around us will reorient itself and take on that energy, take on that frequency, vibrate at that wavelength.
I really love this guy. But keeping philosophy aside, keep Fufu and Aero aside, how can we use our intelligence to solve over common problems? And there's something that he said also, I feel you are being sexist, and I wanted to comment about it before we get to that, because Hansel, our focus on this show, because we are men, we are focusing on us men. That is why we are talking about it in that context. If we're having this conversation in, with just say talking to women, I mean, it's open to women, isn't it? But we are men here. We are trying to, this show is meant to address problems in relationships from the perspective of the man. And that is why we are looking at it from that angle. I hope that answers your, before you come on, BK, I love me a dose of BK. Jeez. Jane, welcome, Jane. Okay, BK, there are two things. We have 6 minutes to the hour, and that would have been 2 hours. I really want those to end because this is 1 a.m. in the UK, and I don't want to abuse this. But I'd like for you to address Hansel's thing about how to use our intelligence to solve our common problems. Again, I thought you did when you talked about the introspection, again, because you made a distinction between education And that introspection where you're looking at yourself and asking yourself those questions. Where did I go wrong? How can I fix it? And which is going to tie in with what Marilyn says. How can I get back to that woman he fell in love with when one is expected to grow? I cannot be a stagnant human being.
Oh, that's a beautiful question. Thank you, Marilyn. So we make a distinction here. You're not going back. So we never travel back. We're always moving forward. So what I meant to say is, if we assume that this man was once so crazy about you that he was going to roll himself in front of you as a carpet for you to walk all over him, then if you found that person, and you would be finding that person, if you went back to that person with who you are at that particular point in time, then it will be your enhanced self. You see, because for you to get there, it takes growth. The only reason you came away from there, don't forget, you compromised on your values to get to that place of pain. So when you restore your values, you're going to have to overcome resistance until you get back to that place. But when you get back, and so when you get back to that place, you've overcome his negative energy. It will have no place in your life. All you will be doing is holding him accountable at that level, helping him grow. So you are helping me grow now because you're holding me accountable and you're not backing down anymore. But you do it in a respectful, and a loving way. So you don't fight with me, but you tell me, looking at me in my eyeballs and telling me, BK, sweetheart, look, if you want us to have a conversation, okay, let's have a conversation. But if you want to make an accusation, I'm sure you'd agree with me. There's nothing I can say to that. What is the essence? It's just to accuse me and then call me bad and call me useless, in which case, what are you doing married to me? But I assume if you're looking to really help me grow, then if there's something that I'm doing wrong, you will highlight it, and then we can together work out to see how we're moving forward, where we want to go and what we're doing to get there. So what is that one thing that you say we're doing, we are not doing right? And what are the changes you want to see so we can collectively work together to get there? And that is communication. Notice you've disarmed him. You've disarmed me completely. What else am I left with? But if you start with, how dare me talk to you this way? Well, who the hell do you think you are? So you notice we have just upped the game. The first one, Marilyn, you gave me a reputation to live up to. I see you showing up in a different way. You're showing up as light. I can't afford to be dark because if I keep down that route, I start feeling small. And sometimes that's a temptation. But then you don't move from where you are. When I go too low, you just let me know, okay, hey, well, when I'm in a better place where I can talk, let's have that conversation. BK, I will move away now, not because I disrespect you. Hey, I love you, but it's clear that we can't really have a conversation. So with your permission, I'm just going to do something else that is productive. By the way, the ironing still needs to be done and I need to iron your shirt. So let's talk about this later. And you move on. How do I go and say you disrespected me? How did you do it? Oh, you went and ironed my shirts. Can you imagine I'm talking to her and she goes and irons my shirts? Not that, as this is just an example, not that you should be ironing my shirts, but it's just to tell you that we have lots of ways of keeping our peace and helping the other person grow. We don't compromise ourselves, we help them grow by doing something that the world and our friends may define as weak, but not a single one of them will be able to do because it takes so much energy, it takes so much fortitude, it takes so much presence, in essence, to do it. But we're easy to call it weak because we can't do it, and because we don't want to be seen as weak, we pretend that, oh, it is strength to batter your wife or to batter your husband or to talk low on them. No, that is the weakness. The strength is have someone talk to you in a way that comes across as disrespectful. They would have disrespected themselves. No, you don't receive it. You show them the higher standard. You say, well, why are you talking this way? This is not you. This is not the man I got married to. How was your day at work? Let us start there and watch that whole thing dissipate. The next time he's coming to you, or the next time I'm coming to you with transferred aggression, I know there is no room for it in that place because I will be belittled. And because I don't want pain, we talked about pain and pleasure. Because I don't want pain, I will not expose myself to that ever again. And Marilyn, if you can do that consistently, you will move from that person that had been battered and bruised back to who you were. But of course, it needs hand holding, because I could tell you this all day long. If you don't do it in situ, on the spot, while it is happening, deal with the situations, and the answers are all in you. It's not even like I need to say do this or do the other, do this, the other, or that one. No, we will have conversations. What do you want to achieve with this? How do you want to feel at the end of this? Now, if you did this, how would it make you feel? Would you feel good about it? No. Maybe at the moment you will feel gratification, but then it turns into enduring pain. The pain of having debased yourself and the pain of having disrespected someone else, because the excuse, he made me do it or she made me do it, as we all know, never washes. Never does. We know that.
Can you hear? Can you guys hear us again? Because I think we were off for a minute. BK, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So let's run up and thank you, BK. I think sometimes we forget that we have a divine mission in our relationships, helping your spouse grow. So help me God. That's Marilyn. Jane, keeping peace amidst adversity, special grace needed to get to that higher standard, but it truly works. Hans, okay, you guys were hearing me. Okay, never off. So, BK, this is the last one. BK, we need hand holding. You have to Zoom tutorial so we can practice. So, again, there's just a lot. I mean, we have been sitting down for 2 hours. And we could go on, but I think it would be an abuse because Madame is waiting for you. And there's many people in the audience want to see your wife. I don't know why they don't want to see my wife. This is because people have been commenting that she must be the most lucky person to have you. And again, I think that the reason for these conversations, and there's something that Marilyn put up that I'm going to look for an opportunity for us to get to that, which is about the role models that we have and how that plays out. It's the conversations today have been going in opposite directions, because on the one hand, we want role models, and we are saying on the other hand, there's no one size that fits all, isn't it? So you're finding that. So, but I think what we intended, or what we focused today, was on our mindset, that we need to grow. And that phrase, that the one message that I'm taking away is, we are called to be our best selves. We're not called to be good. We're not called to be better. We are called to be our best selves. And we can only achieve that through enlightenment. And our spouse helps us in that initiative. And the way we respond is not so much about the person. I say this all the time. Anger management classes that I give to people, I say, nobody ever makes another person angry. No one ever makes you angry. You make yourself angry, because whatever the person says, whatever the person does, you could move away, you could do whatever, but you chose to be angry. In all that list of things you could do, you chose that. And fundamentally, we didn't get to it today about the culture. One of the areas where we need a mindset shift is about the cultural values we are using. In order to build up these relationships, we need a fundamental mindset shift in order for these relationships to work. Over to you, BK.
I love what you said there. So there's the whole thing about culture, which I want to store and come to. There was something we talked about, something you highlighted. Somebody disagreed with something. I'm trying to remember what it was. You clarified it, but I just wanted to say, I was being sexist. Yes,
that's answered.
I was being sexist. Who was that? Sorry, who was that?
It's Hansel.
Yes. So, Hansel, I think it is very important if you could, because you see, comments like that are so important to me. So they mean everything to me. Because this is the exact opposite of what it is we're trying to achieve. So if I came across that way, it's because you picked up something, and I would like to know what that thing is. Please just drop it in the comments so I can adjust the way I speak. Because ultimately, communication means nothing. What I say and the intention that I have is complete nonsense if it doesn't come to you as I intended it. So until I can communicate what I want to say in a way that I want to say it, and it reaches you unaltered, I have not communicated. That is why this is so important to me, Hansel. And if you could really expand and expatiate what it is that made you feel I was being sexist, it will help me moving. It will help me going forward. So because we do not want anyone to come have that impression and then go away with the holding the wrong end of the stick. We would really want to address that.
You can see the smiley that he has put up. So
Yes. No, it
yeah,
is so
anyway,
important.
Hansel, please, again,
Yeah.
like I said, I have
Yeah.
Hansel's number. I can,
Brilliant.
yes, yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. So he
Yeah.
says I'll call.
Yeah. Because what I usually say is in relationships, just as in now, it is these small things that matter. Because someone could feel that and not say it. So later on downstream, anything else that I say, they build on that chip, that foundation that they have laid. He is sexist. Then your filters start looking for anything that is sexist in what I say, and you will find it because it's just going to be a question of interpreting something that I have said differently than I meant it, than I intended it. But you're not doing it deliberately. You're simply doing it because something has struck you and you have the impression that's where I'm coming from. So until I can convince you of it, of the opposite, we might end up losing you or losing someone who got that same impression, and that's what we want to avoid. Okay, coming back to the cultural side of things. Again, we talked about things being agnostic. We would realize that the stimulus is completely irrelevant. Whether you are Caucasian, as in white, whether you are black, whether you are yellow, whether you are green, whether you are small, whether you are tall, whether you are young, whether you are old, notice that everything is just a vehicle. Everything is a filter. Everything is a handle. Everything is a stimulus, which will bring out in us comfort or discomfort. We're going to have to react or respond, hopefully respond to the comfort or the discomfort in a way that builds on itself to empower such that all engaged are empowered, all engaged grow, come up higher. So notice it doesn't matter what your culture is, what the mores and values and ethos are. It doesn't matter what your customs and traditions are. Are those customs and traditions supporting us as a community of individuals as opposed to individuals within a community? If your customs and culture and traditions are favoring individuals within the community at the expense of that community of individuals, then something needs to give. And it's as simple as that. Is it growing the entire community or is it growing individuals? If that's the case, something needs to give. It doesn't matter what specific thing it is. Each person who is bound by the processes and procedures that operate in that space is responsible to ensure that it is enhanced. Otherwise, they are part of the problem. So notice we're not talking about the nitty-gritties. We're not getting into individual situations. We're speaking generically, but it doesn't matter what you put into this model. It comes out the other end clean, nice and dandy, sparkling, completely processed, ready, finished, a finished product awaiting consumption, empowering consumption. And how do you know that you're doing the right thing? When you do it, you will feel at ease, you will feel peace. Even if you're going against the entire world, you just know that you're doing the right thing, you will feel peace. It will bring healing. You will get confirmation. People you don't expect will tell you that, oh wow, we loved that. That was amazing. you will get these confirmations. And even before you get them, you will feel them. That sense of gratification, that sense of fulfillment that comes from within. It doesn't come from out there. So everyone could be against you, but you're feeling warmth and calm and composure within you. And then with time, you realize slowly people start turning, people start changing. Why? All the while you were correct. So notice again that mindset, and that is why I chose it. Mindset is a place where you can deal with any situation, any and all situations. It doesn't matter the origin, it doesn't matter the source, it doesn't matter where it is coming from, it doesn't matter what angle it is flying in at, what speed it is coming at you with. None of that matters. It doesn't matter whether it's from the West or it is from Africa. It is a challenge, period. That challenge is going to cause you pain or it will cause you pleasure. If you see it as pain, how are you adjusting to it to make sure that you overcome that obstacle so it is not painful to you and it is not painful to your immediate environs and it is not painful to your community? And that is how it grows. When you overcome it, you teach others how to overcome it. The world becomes a better place. We all grow. If we're not doing that, then we're retrogressing. And so notice again, it has nothing to do with A did this to B or this particular situation or the other. No, they are all stimuli. And that is all that they are. And it is as simple and as complicated as that. When we come into a situation with unconditional love, we are open enough to discuss anything under the sun, and we're willing to push each other and one another to become our best selves. Guess what? Living starts. Surviving stops, because everyone becomes everyone's keeper. Thank you.
Thank you so much, BK. It has been very engaging. I really want to appreciate you for staying up this late, as always. I want to thank you. I want to ask one thing from the audience. If there are any subjects that you want us to engage in, just leave us a comment. You can always reach out to me, send me a text, and we are going to grow this organically, to use BK's words. We have been 6 months into this, and I think it's time for us to get big. I really want to appreciate you all. I want to appreciate all those who spent time. Share this, like it, distribute it, and above all, you, like I say at every time, you need to go to mindsetboulevard.com. Mindsetboulevard.com. That is a place where you want to go to. That's a group that you want to belong to for more conversations like this. BK, once again, I appreciate you. Next week, we talked about Boulevard, but I'm already thinking of something else. Let's connect next week. Thank you all. Have a good evening.